Hello, good afternoon to you, and welcome to Hot Issues. It's your instructive and a very detailed current affairs program. My name is Alfred Okansi, and I'm sitting in for your regular host, Winston Amoa. This afternoon, we're going to be engaging on the happenings in the Electoral Commission, specifically with the chairperson and her two deputies, the allegations and counter-allegations, the suspicions, and then also the issues relating to the credibility of the Electoral Commission in the long run. After all this is said and done, what exactly should be done to the Commission in ensuring that we have a credible institution to administer elections in this country? I'm sure that's the paramount interest of everybody in this whole issue. And also, the raiding or the visiting of the home of the former Minister for Power, Dr. Kobna Donko, by the police service to, as it were, ascertain, according to them, some evidence relating to the Mary deal, which is under investigation as we speak at the moment. Also following up to what was happening in Parliament, specifically the former Minister of Energy and also Member of Parliament, Kwabena Tariq Hammond, who also filed a motion to have Parliament reverse that particular deal. It's also raised some questions going forward about their marriage. We're going to be looking at these two this afternoon here on Hot Issues. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to Hot Issues this afternoon. My name is Alfred Okansi, and my guest this afternoon is Mr. Franlin Cudjoe. He's the founding president of Imani Africa. It's a policy think tank and also on education as well. And he's joined us this afternoon to deliberate on these two very important issues. Mr. Cudjoe, good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to see you.
Absolutely. It's been a while.
It's been a while, yes.
10 years running. But it's great to have you this afternoon. And I'm sure that you're one person who is equally concerned about the happenings at the Electoral Commission, the allegations, counter-allegations, accusations, and counter-accusations that has characterized this few weeks gone by. Does it surprise you, the happenings at the Electoral Commission now?
Well, not at all. I mean, as one of the watchers of our democracy and from afar, we have always had cause to complain about the challenges that the public sector really has. We believe at Imani that one of the greatest banes of this country is the fact that people in officialdom always take it for granted that their positions actually come with all the kinds of laxity that we have as well. And I found that very shocking, that people were shocked that these things were happening at the Electoral Commission. And
you were not surprised, you were not shocked? It's something you expected was going to happen anytime soon?
Well, you see, our democracy has done quite well, and I think that our democracy is always an electoral-based democracy, not necessarily because the ingredients of democracy, which is responsibility towards the people, indeed are the hallmarks of this democracy. Maybe occasionally you find examples where people are chucked out of office, but it has always been like that. The deeper issues related to, responsibility and accountability in office, unfortunately, have become anathema to the current for a while now, anyone who has been in office. And these things permeate most of our public institutions. So I wasn't entirely surprised at all.
No, but this began with a petition to have the chairperson impeached by a group that until recently we were told 17 people had signed that petition. The Electoral Commission's chairperson's lawyer described them as an amorphous group of persons who say they are concerned Electoral Commission workers. It has traveled to this point where we know that that petition has been forwarded to the Chief Justice for the constitutional process to take its course. Would you subscribe to the calls to have the commissioners step aside for the process to take its course, or they should stay on because these remain allegations until they are proven otherwise?
Well, specifically to the Electoral Commission, I'm sure you know that many civil society organizations have had cause to complain about the, if you like, the opaqueness of the operations of the Electoral Commission since time immemorial. I mean, the fact that the Electoral Commission itself cannot necessarily force political parties to, as it were, open their books. It's one of their failings, and to the extent that the Electoral Commission itself has been mired in all manner of controversy since Afarijan's time. I don't know if it is time immemorial, but we've had instances where these things have played out. What is playing out for me in this particular instance seemed to me to be a situation where one person seems to be interested in trying to solve the bedlam, if you like, the challenges that the Electoral Commission has. And he or she is actually being swamped by the people in the swamp, because what is emerging clearly is that this is a woman who has tried without number to rein in some of her deputies. I mean, that's what I'm picking up from all this confusion, is that she's nested a lot of thoughts and a lot of challenges at the commission, and these things are just coming out right now. If you notice that almost everybody seems to be up against her, must tell you that there is some grand collusion in order to kick her out.
You suspect a grand collusion because, as you say, people are benefiting from the current state of the commission, where there are no structures, there's no corporate governance structure.
Well, it seems to me that she's in the battle of her life. She has actually been in the battle for her life, if you like, of her life, throughout the entire time that she had been at the commission. That's my reading of what is happening right now, because if she could make an allegation that some of her deputies, especially the deputy in charge of operations, could actually transfer votes illegally, tells me that during the election process, when we were having all these challenges, the poor lady was actually trying to keep together a commission whose leadership were trying to undermine her authority.
And you know, if that aspect is proven to be true, that could really raise questions about the credibility of the just ended election.
Aspects of the elections that I find a bit worrying. I mean, if the weight can be put on what the commissioner said, that she found to her chagrin that her deputy in charge of operations illegally transferred thousands of votes, that obviously tells you that there were aspects of the election that could have been compromised. But you see, the larger picture again is that this tells you a story which has now finally been pieced together by this revelation that all that we saw and experienced during the elections, the back and forth, the petitions, the court battles, were quite, intense moments where the commissioner was trying to rein in some of her derelicting deputies. I mean, that's the only thing I pick from this.
But will the process that has kickstarted now help us to establish the truth about all of this? Because I'm sure what you and I and the viewers are really interested in is the truth about these allegations.
Well,
okay.
the woman had been fighting these battles for a very long time. I'm reliably aware that she had actually prepared a dossier already that she sent to the presidency. So she actually took lead. And I'm sure...
That was earlier in the year?
Well, earlier in the year. And I'm sure that all those people who have been cited are now coming to the realization that, wow, this woman had actually documented all these processes and actually taken the lead already. And so now that they've heard, they're also actually making a lot of, it's like a revolution really. Everything we are seeing was actually one lady or one woman who had stomached a lot of nonsense by her deputies. And to the extent that she managed to pull the elections itself, it's actually some feather in her cap, I would say.
The issues raised in the petition as well, do they have enough grounds to merit a process for her impeachment?
Well, you should probably see what she had written in her own petition, which she submitted much earlier. before these ones are coming. I mean, these are counter accusations, and which is why I also tend to agree that the only way out is to have a thorough investigation. Because at this stage, we are only now hearing the mud that is thrown at her, and she trying to respond. I think she decided to, even though I know reliably that all these things have been prepared and given to the appropriate authorities even before this petitioners rose up, it appears to me that what they are doing is a reaction of what exactly she had already taken the lead to do anyway. So the best way out is for us to have a thorough investigation. And that's the way I see this whole thing playing out.
And while that thorough investigation is ongoing, should they still be at the commission?
Well, you know, it depends on the type of investigations that will be launched into this matter anyway. As we speak, the petition that was presented had been sent to the Chief Justice. I'm sure that due investigations will proceed, and that's the way to go. I'm not one who would necessarily say right now that the Commission's work should come to a grind. I wouldn't say so. But of course, they have to be part and parcel of the investigations. If it is proven that the working relationship as we have it right now jeopardizes the work of the Commission, then maybe there may be a case to suggest that some people may have to step aside. But you see, you don't want to leave you don't want to leave any vacuum at the leadership as well. I think these matters are grave, and indeed they bother on people's personal integrity. But at the end of it all, a thorough investigation is the only way that would get to the bottom of this matter. I mean, the way we do our things about asking people to step aside, I don't know if their physical presence would necessarily enjoy like investigations anyway. I don't believe that.
After all is said and done, I mean, having exhibited this deep-seated level of disagreements and antagonism amongst the three of them, should they still remain there even if any of them is cleared of all of this?
Well, after all is said and done, will be based on the evidence that will be adduced in order to back the counter accusations. And I suspect that's what is done in an orderly society. If it is proven that any of them was found wanting in all these allegations, well, the sanctions would apply, and they may not be there any longer. But I'm just saying that it's a bit of a wild goose chase right now, trying to suggest exactly what the outcomes will be. I mean, I'm just telling you from the standpoint of somebody who is looking at the issues clearly, and I'm not an investigator. I'm just telling you how I feel, my analysis of the situation. And that's what I've said. It doesn't mean I'm taking sides of the lady at all. I'm just saying that with the historical background of the Electoral Commission that I know of, and with the things that are playing out, it looks to me that this lady was one hell of a fighter who was trying to stop the whole rot and actually trying to contain the situation during the elections before it exploded. We are now learning after the fact that these things had happened. It is important that the investigations cover every single allegations, counter allegations that have been made in order to satisfy the position that the Electoral Commission occupies one of the highest possible integrity offices in this land. I mean, that is the only way we can get out of this mess. My reading tells me clearly that this woman was fighting sharks, a lot of them, human sharks, huge ones.
Human sharks at the Commission. Wow. You're still watching Hot Issues here on TV3. My guest is Franlin Cudjoe. He's the founding president of Imani Africa. We'll be back shortly after this quick break. To stay. Welcome back to Hot Issues here on TV3. My guest is Franlin Cudjoe. He is the founding president of Imani Africa, and we've been talking about what's happening at the Electoral Commission. Mr. Cudjoe, now, trust and confidence is very critical in the work of the Commission because it borders on its credibility. I mean, how do we deal with these persons involved without the credibility of the institution, of which we do not have an alternative for when it comes to the organization of elections in this country, still remaining intact ahead of any other election we have ahead of us?
It's not as if we don't have a template already. I mean, we just saw some of the most egregious crimes ever committed within the judiciary. And what did the Chief Justice do? She set up committees in order to look into the matter, and some justices have been hauled before court, and I think the process is still continuing, right? So it's not as if we don't have a template, really. We do have templates, and I think the best way out is for the similar investigations to be done. This is a situation where you are right. Trust and confidence is broken. It's actually been broken for a very long time, and so it behoves on the various authorities, from the presidency, the other arms of government, to ensure that the commission is saved from the plummeting fortunes, really. So for me, there's no negotiations about this. A thorough investigation will be the only way out, really, out of it. I mean, the counter accusations are not necessarily good for us at all. And it's important that, as you rightly said, the integrity of the Electoral Commission comes at top. As an institution comes at top. It should be apparent to everybody looking into this matter, unless you are not probably sophisticated to understand that what had happened is a clear case of one person not being liked. And the fact of the matter is that there was a swamp and all these human sharks were trying to get it out of the place. I mean, we need to speak truth to power. And
what are these human sharks? Are you able to identify any of them?
But there have been exhibits of that already shown by the woman herself. I mean, if this person is fighting all these battles and fighting all the persons that have been mentioned, I'm not proclaiming that they are necessarily guilty, but I'm just saying that an institution that has not lent itself to the kinds of transparency that would demand is little surprised that these things are happening right now. And I'm seeing maybe this woman was the Wonder Woman that we needed in order to fight these, if you like, shenanigans at the Electoral Commission. She probably needs a bigger shield. That's the way I see it, really. I mean, I'm not mincing words at all. I'm not taking sides, but that's what I see.
Interesting. This is one of the issues this particular administration has had to deal with, you know, within this period that has been in power.
And it doesn't help with all the unnecessary bastardization of the EC by some political
this has
people as well.
again
I mean, I
been
think
reduced to an NPP-NDC fight where one seems to be on the defense and the other
which
seems
again
to be
becomes the deviousness of our politics. You know, it's arcane. It's illiterate, really. I mean, I don't understand why people would take, you know, extreme partisan interest in matters like this. It doesn't bode well for our democracy.
What would be your review or analysis of this particular administration performance being in office for this while? Obviously, there isn't much to measure them on in terms of the fulfillment of their manifesto promises, but their operational decisions and day-to-day actions that the president and this administration has had to take. What would be your view?
Well, there's a certain sense that there's still a large room for, you know, accommodating the government in terms of the goodwill that they have, in spite of the obvious infractions that have occurred. I mean, if you're looking at all the security-related issues, and if you're also looking at some of the issues surrounding the appointments, which I disagree with the government entirely when they suggest that it's not about how you get to a destination, but essentially where the destination really matters. I think that the appointments were quite unfortunate. There were too many, as I've heard in some circles, that some of them really do not even have jobs to do.
Just have to wait and see.
Well, but that's understandable, but that's fine. I mean, we are watchers of our own democracy and understand that. But what I'm trying to say is that in spite of these things, the government is still in motion. There are certain indications that some of the things they want to achieve in terms of the business environment are quite okay. I mean, if you look at the taxes that have been abolished, they are still having issues with the 3% flat VAT rate, but they will get over it. I think that those signs are useful. The only issues I have has to do with the way they may have to find very innovative ways of addressing a lot of their manifesto promises, which would mean that, by their own words, you know, looking out for external borrowing may not necessarily be the way out. And even if they have to do that, it has to be smarter. it's an issue about looking at domestic mobilization of resources. I think that in spite of what we've heard, if the first and second quarter performances do not really give us any room any legs to stand on, there may be challenges trying to achieve all the promises within a particular 4-year window. I think that they may have to go back to the drawing table and reorder their promises and look at the most critical ones that would deliver real value. And promises are quite a lot, and it's important to look at the ones that are growth enhancing in order not to dissipate your funds all throughout. I mean, I do not necessarily think that the free SHS policy, which has been obviously reduced in terms of the original idea behind it, because now they are saying that, well, people have to sit a BCE exam and it will be the filter to use. Absolutely. They have now even decided that there will be quota systems of public institutions, whether they like it or not. They will take people who probably do not pass. All of this seem to tell me that they are learning, that there's a learning curve in order to understand that there must be a policy paper guiding promises. Because when you tell me, for instance, that as an institution that is interested in excellence, that I should take a number of dudui, as in people who fail, willy-nilly, you impose 30% on me, that seems to me, and it sounds like socialist. But I'm ready to accommodate that, because you're now learning that it is not as easy as suggesting a blanket wholesale approach to free SHS.
In the sense of its
but
word
again,
free,
the way, one of
these.
the significant departure from the time the promise was made was that it was going to be universal, that universal education basic would terminate at SHS. Now we are being told that there's a filter which people will have to write exams, which we wouldn't have to quarrel with. But it has always been the case that the things that are being mentioned right now are the very reasons why we said there must be a gradualist approach to this, and there must be a situation where parents who can afford to pay should be allowed to pay. If the minister can agree that and can still use a system to decide that 30% of people will be forced on public institutions, what was difficult in using the same scenario to determine those who can afford to pay so that you can save some money? I mean, it's as easy as that. I'm just saying that 6 months, again, is too short a time to assess them, because but they've put in some significant steps and some relearning in order to see if they would be able to achieve the promises.
Thank you, Mr. Cudjoe. Now, the former Power Minister, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, had some very unwanted visitors at his home sometime within the week. They took laptops, pen drives, you know, in the whole investigation to the Mary deal. Kwabena Tahir Hammond has also tabled a motion, which I'm sure you've got into details of. What exactly is your position on this?
Well, first of all, I've learned that the best way to elicit the kinds of responses you want from suspected, even if they are criminals, is to do it in an orderly manner. I've not heard that Kwabena Donkor is a flight risk, has run away and wants to leave the jurisdiction, and has not heard that he's been invited and he said he wouldn't go. So I found it a bit surprising, really, what the CID was actually looking for, and to think that they would have found them. They were
looking for evidence. That's the explanation they gave.
But evidence, I don't know whether it's like a metal frame that you go and see and then you pick. But I understand the kind of evidence they probably want is quite electronic. And so I hope that they find the sort of evidence that they want. But I'm just saying that it's a bit, you know, the Mary deal in itself was incompetently done. I mean, some people have said it was corruptly done, that it was fraudulent and all of that. We seem to have used words like that in the past. But there's a gradual learning to the point that we feel that, look, this whole deal could have been done without the involvement of Mary in the first place.
And the best we had bought the aeroderivative plants directly from Metka.
Yes, yeah, from Metka, really. It was going to be 360 million. Probably no need paying 150 million. But you see, in all of this, nobody held the gun.
That's 220 million for the plant and then the 140 million for
nobody held the gun to the power minister at the time in order to okay this deal. And as I've heard from the legal brains, the agreement itself is so watertight that trying to do anything about it, if you want to fight it in court, you stand a chance of actually losing. Which is why there are attempts to make it look really grand and that it was dastardly done. That's the only reason why I understand the police raid. And as I said, I hope they find what they want to find. I think the most sensible thing to do in this deal is to sit with these Ameri people and with all the facts of science, evidence around the world, that these plans do not cost what they actually cost, and that we think you made supernormal profit
of $150 million.
We could shave off about $70 million. And I've not heard instances where, well, of course, I'm sure the American people haven't spoken yet, so we don't know whether they've been asked to come and negotiate and they say they don't want to negotiate and they don't want to do it. I would think it's one of the best way out. While we do the learning, while we go through that learning curve. I'm not saying that if there's a suspicion of crime, the authorities should not fight it. But I'm just looking at it sitting somewhere, and I'm looking at the future of aeroderivatives in this country, which is something we do need, by the way. And I'm asking myself, who actually ordered this raid? We don't even know. Well, of course, the CID probably is behind it, but that's fine.
The police
is behind
it. Taking responsibility.
Exactly. I mean, I wish that they were super swift in all other matters that involve the killing and the maiming of their own. But I'm just saying that the way, from where I sit as a policy analyst, and the best way out of this deal is to involve all the people and say that, look, this thing was overly priced. We need to see ways of trying to reduce the price. That is what I think should be coming out of this as well.
So let's look at it this way. You talk about renegotiation. I mean, what should we be, I mean, should we even consider that option? What should we even be looking out for in going into renegotiate? Because it's one thing deciding to do it and actually doing it right. Oh,
but it's easy. I mean, you have all the analysis Imani did, for instance, for you. Much more detailed analysis I've seen anywhere else about Ameri, by the way. Which is to say that, listen, these plans were individually, off the shelf, would have actually cost us about probably $11 million. But yes, fine, we paid $20 million per one, and then we got 10 of them, right? If you added the installation cost of about $140 million, well, you got $360 million, which Medca had published on its website, on its books, because they're a European entity.
That's how much the deal you can always access.
You know, one part of this deal also would tell me something, that buyer beware. Well, you then went to approach Medca, approach Ameri. I don't know how it happened, but either way, there was an approach. And Ameri says, listen, we'll give you this for 5 years. What I'm trying to suggest is that we wouldn't have needed Ameri in the first place anyway. So Ameri coming on as a deal maker probably got, in fact not probably, just got too much of the money. 150 million was just too hefty a sum that was negotiated. And that's where I suspect is the conundrum. These are matters that we can go back on the table and call Ameri and say, listen, guys, we were shortchanged. Maybe you want to be in this business for the long haul, because now we are looking into aeroderivatives. We want GE is into it, Siemens is into it. Maybe the future of Ghana partly also hinges, in the power sector, hinges on aeroderivatives. We think you might want to be a significant player going into the future, because I know Medca is here already, by the way. Medca is trying to lobby its way to have some significant stakehold in this market. So it tells you that there's a future for it. So if you guys really want to get into this business, and there are other tangential businesses that you may want to come into this country to do, because let's face it, a lot of the money now sits in Asia, and these Arabs have a lot of the money. We can leverage on all of that and say, listen, we want you to invest in this economy as well. But before you do, renegotiate this thing, you got super normal profits. We want you to cut this into half, and let's save $75 million of the country. We can even do 90 million.
Mr. Cudjoe, I'd want to thank you very much, and I'm grateful for your time this afternoon, and I'm sure that as this particular issue unfolds, we'll have some time to engage with you again. I'm grateful. Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
Franlin Cudjoe is the founding president of Imani Africa. It's a policy think tank. My name is Alfred Kansi, sitting for your regular host, Winston Amwa. This has been Hot Issues. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned into TV3.